promotional
much.
program is what it turns out to be, remember?
It's a lifestyle.
Lifestyle,
right.
yeah, lifestyle program.
Mark and I made it a lifestyle show, and you have to carry on with that.
Thinking
Listen,
Real Estate.
I'm a lawyer, I have no lifestyle.
ThinkingRealEstate.com.
I would say things, but since we're married and I'm not interested in a divorce yet,
You haven't been watching Sesame Street, obviously.
You said yeah.
I said yeah.
Okay.
I like to leave my options open.
Laura Dwyer Schletke, Bill Schletke. ThinkingRealEstate.com.
I invited someone over for dinner for Christmas.
What's your phone number?
780-3830.
What's your number here?
787-3397.
Very good. Okay.
So, and I didn't even look. I think it's on the top of this. But anyhow, I was saying I invited someone over for dinner for Christmas, and they said, well, we'll see. And I said, are you waiting to see what your better options are?
Well,
They said yes.
Of course.
I don't like that. So, anyhow.
So you're having a big party.
No.
You're not.
announcing no.
All right.
Big party. Not happening.
Not
Did
yet.
you go to the American Title party? Because that was a big party.
I missed it. Doggone it.
I didn't talk about it, Ron, before the party. So, anyhow,
So you were there?
yes. Bill came late.
How was it?
It was excellent, as
Okay.
always. I mean, Daryl's always does nice food, and Ron knows how to throw a party.
And I got back just in time. I was at a zoning board of appeals meeting in Tawas City, 3 hours to the north. And the meeting was at 5, over at 6, and I made it back in time for the tail end of the party.
Wow.
Yeah. Nothing like going to a ZBA meeting in northern Michigan.
Which is,
Looked like a Thursday in
To
Tawas.
enliven one's life. What are you doing?
I said there's nothing like a Thursday in Tawas.
Yeah, right, that too, yeah. Hey, listen, I'm leaving for Waukegan later on today for a hearing tomorrow there. So.
Illinois or Wisconsin?
Well, I didn't know there was a Waukegan, Wisconsin.
I
This
thought
is
there was.
Waukegan, Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah, just north of Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little Indian towns over there.
Indeed.
so we could talk about that. So you went up to Tawas for what? A variance meeting? What was the variance for?
Variance was, it actually relates somewhat to what's happening in Jackson. There was a decision on December 4 by the Michigan Court of Appeals addressing an ordinance in the city of Brighton that provided if it was a non-conforming use, if the cost of repair or replacement, this is the Tawas City ordinance, exceeded 60% of, I'm trying to remember if it was paid
I thought it
to
was
value.
70%.
No, in Tawas it's 60%.
Oh.
Okay, in your ordinance in Jackson, I think it's 70%, but in Taos it's 60%. And so the property owner's property had deteriorated to such a degree that now it was condemned by the city, and it condemned because the cost of repair was estimated to be in excess of that percentage. And so the owner wanted to obtain a variance in order to allow the owner to rebuild the property. It's currently single-story, wanted to build it as a two-story. The two-story would have been conforming, but for the fact that it violated that 60% ordinance. And interestingly enough, a week ago, the Michigan Court of Appeals, in a case called Leon Bonner, I think it is Bonner, versus the city of Brighton, the Court of Appeals struck down as unconstitutional that sort of ordinance that provided for, and I haven't read the entire opinion, it's a 21-page opinion, I just got it, but in essence struck it down as facially unconstitutional, that they had to afford the property owner the opportunity to repair or rebuild irrespective of the percentage. And I'll know more after I read the entire opinion. And that actually, it's interesting because that impacted the ZBA proceeding that we had before the Tawas City Zoning Board of Appeals on Monday. And in fact, I appeared originally to object to the granting of the variance, but after meeting with the zoning administrator, talking with the owner, the owner's builder, etc., actually ended up withdrawing the objection based upon not only what they had to say, but also the Court of Appeals decision. So things continue to happen. And so that may tie into, and you as a city council person, you and the city attorney, Jules Giglio, will probably be reading this opinion very shortly. And I don't know if the city of Brighton is going to appeal to the Michigan Supreme Court. They have 21 days to file an application for leave to appeal to the Supreme Court.
So
So
what would,
you found that fair for the homeowner?
Yeah, I typically represent owners and developers and not municipalities. I really want to read the entire decision. But yeah, I just basically from what I understand in glancing at the opinion before the ZBA meeting, I'd probably agree with the Court of Appeals if in fact you're willing to invest the amount of money, and the property owner is going to invest a powerful amount of money here. They have to build within the existing foundation because of the setbacks. It's a very narrow, not a particularly deep lot, so they're still stuck with the original foundation. So they can really only go up, and as long as they're within the height limitation in that zoning district, which I think is 25 feet, they're conforming. The only nonconformity is that the property has deteriorated so far
I thought it
that,
was non-conforming because it was too close to the water's edge.
no, 25-foot setback from the water's
she's
edge.
25 feet
and the
back?
owner meets that particular criteria.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it was interesting. It's interesting the dynamics that go on sometimes between
So what if it's-
property owners and municipalities, et cetera.
So I think the cities, and I don't have it in front of me, so don't anybody quote me. I think the city says if you've got a 4-unit property that's in a zoned R1, single family, and it's deteriorated, you can't invest back into the 4-unit. You can make it
Right,
a
that's
single
that's a
family.
different issue. In other
Okay.
words, this particular owner's property was completely conforming, but for the fact that the cost of repair now would exceed the percentage allotted under the statute. That was the only nonconformity. And so the issue became, is she entitled, is the owner entitled to a variance from that nonconformity? And yeah, you have to really side with the owner on that one. If the owner's willing
Yeah.
to invest
I
$100,000
would agree with
to improve the property, and it also will improve the value or increase the value of the neighboring property. So on balance, I think it was a good decision by the ZBA. And as I say, I'll read the Court of Appeals decision.
And I don't think
So
ours,
why can't you fix up a 4-unit?
if you've got a 4-unit or a 2-unit and you're in a single family residential,
Yeah.
and it's
Your non-conforming use.
And
That's a use. That's actually what's known as a non-conforming use, as opposed to a non-use non-conformity, which would be like violation of a setback or something other than use. In other words,
Right.
if I'm in a residential district and I'm a residential use, I'm conforming as far as that use is concerned. But if I'm 5 feet from the side lot and it's 10 foot, then I'm non-conforming in terms of a non-use non-conformity. Those are a use. To get a use variance is much more difficult than to get a non-use variance, because it's the use that really is more important to the adjoining property owners than a technical violation of a setback requirement or something like that. You have to show, it's a much higher standard to get a variance for a use variance. For example, a 4-family in a single-family residential district is a use nonconformity. And
Well,
therefore,
how did it get there to begin with?
so
because it was done before the zoning ordinance.
Then why wouldn't it be grandfathered?
It is grandfathered so long as the use is not interrupted for a period of time set under the ordinance. Many ordinances will say if the use is discontinued for 6 months, you
Which is what ours
you
says.
lose your non-conforming status.
So if it sits vacant
Your
for 6
grandfather
months,
status.
Okay.
if I've got a 4-unit apartment building and I've got a couple of apartments that are sitting vacant, then I'm gonna lose my,
Then you lose
ability.
the use variant. You
Right.
lose the grandfathering.
So 2 of the 4?
or 1 or,
Whatever
I
the
don't
number
think-
may
yeah,
be.
doesn't
Although
matter.
there's an interesting question there. In other words, if I have a
I-
4-unit within a single-family residential unit, then I have 3 of them rented and only 1 is vacant. As the owner's lawyer, I'd make an argument that in fact I'm still grandfathered in because I'm still violating the current zoning ordinance by having multiple
Right.
tenants in there. So I think I can. I think I could win that one. In other words, they can't get rid. In other words, they can't take me from a 4 to a 3 down to a 2 just based upon vacancy of 1 unit. I'm non-conforming the instant that I've got 2 units in there. But the ordinances will typically provide that if, not only if the use is abandoned, but if you need to improve the property by investing X amount of dollars, and that X amount of dollars exceeds a certain percentage of value of the property, then you're no longer grandfathered, because what you are doing, the whole theory of grandfathering is, I can't ex post facto, after the fact, zone somebody out of existence. We don't allow that. However, we do, the grandfathering provisions are generally set up so that sooner or later, that property will come into conformity with the rest of the properties within that zoning district. Therefore,
But they can't be forced into that.
they can't be forced into it, but what happens is you cannot continue the nonconformity by improving the property so much that you are now eliminating the prospect or reducing the prospect that the nonconformity is going to go away over a period of time.
So for
So
example,
you're telling me if you have a 4-unit and there's only 2 units occupied,
No, what I'm saying, this is a different issue. This is if I have a 4-unit, but it's now so run down.
well, I understand what you're
Okay.
saying,
Yeah.
but what if half of it is in use?
This doesn't. I'm not even relating this to the use.
Okay.
I'm relating this to the cost
To the
of
quality of
improving
it,
it,
to the-
so
yeah.
that if I have to invest $100,000 in a $50,000 property as it sits right now, it's valued at $50,000.
and it's a 4-unit sitting in a single family.
What
Well,
I-
a 4-unit's not going to be valued at 50, is it?
Sure,
Well, no,
it
just-
could be, but I'm just giving you
these
some
are
arbitrary
examples.
numbers.
All right.
So now it's going to cost me double what the value is to keep it as a 4-family.
Right.
Most ordinances will not permit that, because what you are doing is you are reducing the chance that this property will become conforming in the foreseeable future. And so far, those ordinances have been upheld, at least as far as I know. I don't think anything's been struck down. Interesting time. This may be boring all your listeners because it's more a legal issue than it is for. I don't know how many people are involved in this sort of thing, but
Well, we bought a house at tax sale that was a 4-unit that we're turning back into a single family. However, it is, I believe the zoning in that area is, it's either R2 or R4.
Which means,
Well, if it's R2, no, it's got to be R4 because I have a 6-unit right next
it's
door.
R4, it's multifamily.
Yeah.
But we're converting it back to a single family
Single.
just because it's better suited as a single
Well, it's a
family.
big house,
Yeah.
but the way that it was divided into 4 units, the rent that we would receive and stuff wouldn't justify the improvements to the property. So I believe personally that it would be better suited as a single family, despite the fact it's a big house.
And she said that she thinks that way. She makes all the decisions in this.
I understand
family. So
that.
you get that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That's the way
follow
she
that.
talks
As it
all the
should
time.
be.
Yeah, right.
Women rule.
Right. You want another interesting thing that's happened
I would
recently?
love an interesting
I
thing.
just had the first.
Maybe the listeners would love an
I
interesting.
just had the first CMBS, commercial mortgage-backed security deal cross my desk. We're doing a refinancing of a project. I won't say where it is, but it's a very large project, multi-million-dollar refinancing. This is one of the few CMBS loans. This is what was going on with frequency before the real estate crash.
What does CMBS stand for?
Commercial mortgage-backed security. These are the mortgages that are packaged and securitized by real property, by predominantly real property, but also some personally, and then sold in bundles to outside investors. And this one is now a non-recourse loan, which means there's no personal liability to the borrower, except for there is a guarantee of what's called the carve-outs, if there are environmental issues and some other things that I won't bore the listeners with. But this is encouraging news in terms of the commercial real estate market. And I will say the project is a residential project, multifamily, so it's not retail, it's not industrial, it's not office. We're still not seeing these kinds of loans in those types of developments, but this is, in my view, quite
So what do you
encouraging.
mean you've seen it come across? Does that mean they're getting a loan on that?
I'm working on it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's being placed as we speak, and it's being placed with a couple other loans. So this is from my perspective as a real estate lawyer who does both litigation and complex real estate transactions. This is very encouraging. And I said a week or so ago, or a few weeks ago, that I had seen sparks of activity now in the commercial market, and this is just one more indication. I mean, we really are, I think, on a road back. Although then last month was the highest number of properties taken back by banks on foreclosures in the United States for 9 months. It took back 59,000 last month.
Residential or any kind of property?
Residential. So
I'm still seeing
That's
a
still gonna
downturn.
continue.
I mean, I
that
think
that's
I just
continuing, but hopefully we're getting toward the end of that. But part of that is the change in the banks' attitudes. We're seeing banks, and I said this before as well, we're seeing banks taking a much harder line in terms of not doing short sales. They're prepared to take the property back because they now see themselves that the real estate market is coming back, particularly the residential market. So they see an opportunity by taking the property back and putting it in their inventory to flip it now to make more money than doing a short sale. That is.
Yeah,
I
and
think
see,
that's the
a short
rationale.
sale is going to be based on the value of the property. I think we've got one right now where the owner owes, let's say, 150. We just sold it, or I mean, we have a accepted offer for what it's worth.
150.
No, it's the owner owes
Oh,
about
okay.
150.
So he's underwater.
So they're underwater. They're going to have to bring $45,000 to the table, and this particular lender says we're not going to do a personal note. We don't do unsecured. They're forcing the seller to go into a short sale, and the seller's willing to pay them. They can't bring $45,000 to the table. Most people can't, and the lender's unwilling to take a monthly payment on the balance.
You're not shocked by that,
I'm a little bit shocked.
are you? Okay.
And I'm not shocked by it at all.
Because they're forcing the seller into a short sale. So what frustrates me is the lender's willing to try and ruin these people's credit when their intention is not at all to not
Yeah, but the lender
fulfill
isn't.
their
The lender
obligation.
isn't doing it deliberately. The lender has a credit reporting requirement.
That's
to
more
report
of
to
a
the
policy
credit
thing,
agency.
isn't it?
It's not just a policy thing. It's the criteria with respect to the credit reporting agencies. They have to show it. That obligation is going to be shown as compromised.
They're not late on their payments. They make all their
Yeah,
payments.
but the bank is losing its security. The difference is the bank.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I got a local lender here.
You think we argue about professional stuff? We argue about other stuff.
But I have a local lender here in town who we just closed on, who I didn't have this problem with at all. Period. They were more than happy.
Different philosophy.
Different philosophy.
Well,
They're taking payments they worked out a payment schedule because that particular seller also wasn't interested in ruining their credit
Yeah,
score
but
and
you're
fleeing from their
you're
obligation.
saying the obvious, and that is you really working with if you can get a loan from a local lender, in my opinion, as a lawyer, it becomes much easier to deal with.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no doubt about it because you have somebody you can talk to, somebody that's willing to work with you. I know you've worked out some arrangements with a couple of lenders. I won't mention them because I don't want to necessarily play favorites, but there are a couple of lenders that we know, local lenders who are willing to work more easily with existing borrowers.
You're going to find that
borrowers.
everywhere, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's relationships too. I think
Right.
that now we're getting into the relationship between the realtor, because it's usually not the borrower that has a relationship. The borrower is new to the bank, so you have to be dealing with a realtor who actually has that relationship. And it's not a lawyer. It's not me as a lawyer. It's a realtor, someone like.
And I'm
Roy or
not
somebody else.
interested in putting any lender in a position where they're having to go after somebody for the money.
Sure.
That doesn't help my reputation.
When's that Christmas party?
Soon.
Oh,
But are we going to talk? Okay, so which of these programs are we going to talk about? Conflict of interest, because I've been trying to talk about that. for
Well,
the
you'll have
last
to do it
3
Well,
next
now
week.
you have a conflict of interest because we're out of time.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
We can talk about it after the show if you'd like to. No.
Well,
We can go to our website, 780-3800.com, and watch this live. Actually, it wouldn't be live, would it?
A replay.
A replay. Call us. Good time. Put your house on the market. We are short listings. So call
You're
me.
short of listings.
We're
you
short,
need listings,
we're
right?
short
You don't have short
of
listings.
listings.
Call this number.
780-3800.